Hey, Armin here. Welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show, where we cover training, nutrition, supplementation strategies, and a whole lot more. So stand by. Hey, and welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Armin Eckelbarger.
I'm Frank Mills. Hey, thank you for joining us today for another NSP Nutrition Show. We've got a good one here for you today. We're going to be talking about what you need to watch about your sugar intake.
Yep.
And of course, we've got your fan questions and feedback, and we appreciate that. So, Armin, let's get started, man. I'm ready for this show. We're in 2023. We made it to the new year. A lot of us are looking to lose weight. And if you're looking to lose weight, you're trying to watch your sugar intake. And that makes sense, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it just seems like the sugar consumption in this country is at an all-time high. And it's just really sad that it's doing that. But if you just look around, you see what most people are eating and drinking. It's just amazing. I mean, to me, the thing is that these people either don't seem to care with this consumption, or they just have no idea how bad this is affecting them, and they need to
Right.
get a wake-up call. So hopefully this will help some people that they can share it with other people that may not be aware, because there's a lot of people thinking, well, carbs are good for me, and fat's bad, and that's not true. And Vince knew that a long time ago. So we're trying to help people relook at what they're doing and stop listening to people that don't know what they're talking about, and listen to, Vince figured it out a long time ago, but people went to a different direction. So we're here to see if we can change that.
Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many people that if we go out to dinner with friends or either other people I talk to, that when they find out that I do the show with you and stuff like that, they tell me how, oh yeah, I don't eat any carbs, I don't have any sugar, and I don't eat meat either.
Oh,
And
okay.
or the whole I only eat egg whites thing. I mean, I deal with a lot of that stuff. So, I get what you're saying. And I was kind of curious, Armin, when you say sugar, does that just mean sugar itself, or are you talking about carbs as well, as you had mentioned?
Well, that's a good question. So there's many forms of sugar. We're talking about pure sugar on this as part of this,
Mm-hmm.
which are simple sugars like table sugar, which is cane sugar. But then
Mm-hmm.
you have corn syrup, you've got high fructose corn syrup, you got maple sugar, you got honey. I mean, there's a lot of different variations here. So,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to include the carbs, since they're also going to convert to sugar to convert to fat. Unfortunately, that's how it
Mm-hmm.
works. So the
Mm-hmm.
carbohydrate, when it gets it can either be stored as glucose in the liver and the muscles, but if they're already full, then these carbohydrates are converted to sugar and stored as fat, and that's where the big problem is.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to talk about is sugar a lot, but also carbs, because both of them elevate insulin, and that causes them to be stored as fat. And people just have no idea, apparently, that that's an important element to keep in mind. So,
Mm-hmm. Right, right. Well, it's kind of funny. I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and he views sugar as the white granular stuff that you
yeah,
put in your coffee
right.
or for baking. He doesn't view sugar any other way. And I'm like, no, it's a broad
Yeah,
category. It's not just like that. And he goes, well, I know there's other variations of it. And I said, no, it's not just the variations. It's directly what happens in the processing of the carbs you eat, along with
exactly.
many foods.
Yep.
And so he and we talked almost an hour about this. So it was
Oh,
really
wow.
good. But I think a lot of folks just don't understand why and how this affects your system. So let's get back to what happens when you watch or you cut back on your sugar or carb intake, so people know.
Okay. So when you make these adjustments, you cut this back. And what we're talking about in the carbs, now we're not talking about strictly vegetables, but we're talking about your
Right.
starchy carbs.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a potato, white rice and things like that. But you're looking at the starchy carbs, but then you're looking at fruit, okay, and then processed food is another. That's really the biggest problem because there's no
Mm-hmm.
fiber. There's no fiber in it, and so because it's already processed, so and your body digests it. When it digests whole fruit and regular vegetables, there's
Mm-hmm.
fiber, so it takes a little while to digest. Well, with processed, it just gets broken down really rapidly.
Right.
And so
Right.
when you cut these things back, and especially if you get the insulin level down, now your body's forced to use fat as an energy system, and it's really the preferred energy of choice when you get the ketones working.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, until you get that fat working, you have insulin elevated. You're never going to get to the fat, and it affects your energies in a lot of different ways. But what we want to do is get this cut back, so we get insulin out of the way, and let the body start using a different fuel source that's more sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I really think that's great, but just so everybody knows, what are the benefits of doing this, Armin?
Well, there's a lot, so we're going to hit on some of the key ones that
Okay.
I'm familiar with. When you cut back on sugar, it's going to affect four main organs. Okay, and so this is why when people are diabetic, they have so many problems because it affects your organs. So
Right. Right.
one of them that most people really have no idea about is their eyes. So when you cut back, it's going to help improve your eyesight, or at least keep it from deteriorating quite as rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you notice, people they have to use readers at a lot younger age than they did than other people did in the past. So
Right.
some people are going to readers at 35 and 40, and they really shouldn't have to. Okay, and I'm on readers, but I didn't need readers until I was like 54.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I also watch my sugar intake, and I also take some supplements to help with that. But the thing is, what happens is when you cut back on the sugar intake, you slow down glycation. Now, glycation, what this does, it stiffens the walls of the cells. So part of that's going to help. It's going to stiffen the cornea over time
Mm-hmm.
because of that, and so that creates a lot more film on the eye to see through. So, in glycation, what it is the sugars and the proteins get tangled up, and then they bind, and that's what causes the problem. So if you don't manage this properly, especially if you become diabetic, then you're going to suffer from what's called retinopathy, because that can come from over time, and that starts to affect the retina itself, and now
Mm-hmm.
you start having all kind of vision problems. So you're going to help your eyesight by cutting back. That's one. Another is the kidneys. People don't think about this. Okay, so the kidneys, when you get too much sugar, it creates inflammation because the kidneys have to be pushing the sugar out. They're trying to get
Mm-hmm.
this out of your system as much as possible. When you get too much, it's trying to flush it. Again, if the muscles in the liver are already full, it can't put it there, so it's going to try and flush it. But if it can't do that, it's going to store it to the fat cells. So this creates a lot of stress to the body because it's inflammation, and that's what people, they don't really realize that.
Hmm.
And so
Okay.
when you have your urine checked, you can see you can also have a problem with there's sugar in the urine, and again, this can lead to a diabetic condition called nephrology, which nephrology is dealing with kidneys, and so people can start having kidney problems earlier than they would think they would have just
Right.
because of the sugar intake. So that's another key one because kidneys, you have two of them, but at the same time, keeping them healthy, both of them would be great in case one of them does end up going bad on you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next is the arteries. And people, I don't understand it. People don't think that has any effect, but when you create inflammation in the arteries, what this does is it makes the spacing a lot smaller, so the blood can't flow through as well,
Mm-hmm.
and so it affects the walls. So this can cause the arterial walls to actually deteriorate, almost like a rusting type factor, because of the sugar coming and going, because the body's trying to get rid of this stuff. And it's not like it's not gonna stick to anything.
Right.
This stuff's gonna stick to the arterial walls, and that's what's gonna cause a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So this can also lead to arteriosclerosis and heart disease as well. But you don't hear anybody talking about that. But it is
Right.
a factor. So again, if you want to have a good good heart system, then cutting back the sugar is going to help that. Okay, because when you reduce inflammation, you reduce the swelling, then everything flows through really rapidly and it gets out of your system the way it needs to naturally.
Mm-hmm.
All right, finally, then you have the brain. Okay, the brain is a very big fan of sugar when if that's your your main source of energy. But what happens is it tends to overstimulate the nerves. And so this is what causes you to have these issues with a crash, getting too excited, having anxiety. It can affect your mood, uh, and also it starts to affect, you know, your memory and stuff because
Mm-hmm. Right.
of what you're doing. But when you use ketones and you're not using the sugar, that changes everything. It helps because it's a more consistent flow of energy. It doesn't spike like a sugar would, and so it helps with the memory or cognition, uh, focus, which is an important thing, especially depending on the job you have. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it helps with the mood to keep stress and this can keep your stress level down. And if you're a person that suffers from anxiety, this is pretty important. So
Hmm.
there's four key organs there that just by cutting back, you're going to improve your health and your lifestyle. Based on what I've researched.
Right. Right now, all that sounds good, and I can assume that you will be less likely to become a diabetic, right?
Yeah, well, diabetes runs in my family. My father had it, and some of my other relatives had it on my mother's side. So yeah, I don't want to have to deal with that because when you read about what it does to you, it is not good, and
Yeah.
that's your downhill slide to just being on medication after
Mm-hmm.
medication. So absolutely, I want to try and avoid it, and I track everything, and it's important.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing good is going to happen. I mean, in a nutshell, if you become pre-diabetic or diabetic, because all you're going to do is you have insulin resistance now, and that starts creating multiple health problems.
Mm-hmm.
And you can avoid all this just by watching sugar intake and carb intake and keeping it lower. And you can even reverse everything if you
Right.
make those steps. Another
Right.
thing that people don't realize when you become insulin resistant, it affects how you absorb vitamins and minerals and other nutrients in your
Hmm.
system. You need insulin to put these things into your cells. But when you're resistant, now you start losing on that. And that's another issue.
Hmm. Okay. Well, a lot of us do enjoy desserts and other things that
Yeah,
contain sugar. We enjoy a lot of the carbs that convert into sugar. And, I get that. And we're never going to say we're never going to do that, right? Because we're talking about normal life here. But what I'm
right.
curious about is, Armin, how much sugar intake is a good goal?
This is when you look up what the recommendation is for the human.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty bad. I mean, they
Wow.
recommend less than 15 grams of sugar. Now we're just talking pure sugar here a day. Okay, less
For
than
the
15
day.
grams
Okay.
for the
For the
day.
day.
I mean,
Okay.
Jesus, they don't take much for that at all. So obviously, this is going to be a stretch if you're trying to do this at this day and age because you have sugar all
Right.
around you, and it's really convenient. It's quick. It's easy. So this is why you also want to manage your carbs along with that because that's going to affect it too. So these are things you want to better get a better understanding and be your own advocate for is
Mm-hmm.
what's in your best interest, not in what your friends saying or what the food companies are telling you, or, things like
Right.
that. You need to do the things that are going to help you. But the other benefit of this is it's going to help you slow down the aging process because you don't have all the stress on the body that the body has to deal with, and that's going to help slow down disease.
Hmm.
So, and again, anytime you can slow down disease happening, you're gonna have a longer, less issue and have less issues with your lifespan. So, and a lot of the research is showing all that now. So,
Well, that's a pretty amazing benefit. Are there other benefits?
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, one thing that can happen is if you're somebody that's struggling with having to go to the bathroom a lot at night, if you're going 3 or 4 times a night, if you cut back your sugar intake, that can actually solve that problem.
Hmm.
So if you're finding that, then you want to experiment with cutting back your sugar intake and seeing how that adjusts for you. Because again, the reason you're doing that is the body's trying to flush that sugar out. It's trying to get rid of it because it's
Mm-hmm.
toxic. Okay. So it's just a natural thing. And again, that stresses your kidneys. So you'll make your kidneys function a lot better. Your cravings for food are going to diminish, and over time, they're just going to go away because you don't have insulin hanging around, which is affecting your leptin hormone to the point where you're always feeling hungry and you need to eat something to keep your energy up. So you cut back the cravings for food; it's more manageable. It's not so stressful to you. So,
Mm-hmm.
and the other thing is because your energy level will be more stable, especially when you're burning fats, because fats burn for 4 to 6 hours versus carbs and sugars are 1 to 2 hours. So you're gonna have more stability there. Um, and then you won't experience having sleepiness during the day and crashes because when you have too many carbohydrates, uh, people get sleepy during the afternoon when they have a big meal like that because it jacks up your serotonin levels, which converts to melatonin, and it's going to make you drowsy. So it makes it hard for the day. Then you're leaning on more caffeine to keep your energy up.
Right.
So, yeah, I
Which I
mean,
watch people do all the time. They're having coffee at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Yeah.
yeah. And so, but then
Yeah.
also, this allows you to burn fat all day. Okay. And you don't have to deal with the crashes. So if you're burning fat all day, who the hell wouldn't want more? Who wouldn't want more of that?
Right. Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, another thing that really helps is muscle stiffness and then joint pain. People that have a lot of muscle stiffness and joint pain will benefit by cutting back the sugar intake. It's going to help because you're getting that inflammation out of the system. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a pretty big one, in my opinion. And then cutting back on sugar, since it's going to reduce inflammation, it's going to improve your arterial health, which you talked about earlier, which can help you get off medications like blood pressure. If you're taking a statin, which they're going to fight you on a statin no matter what because they
Right.
just think that's so critical. But any other anti-inflammatory drugs, you won't need because once the inflammation drops, your body's going to be like, hey, we don't need this, and it's going to give you signals
Mm-hmm.
that it's going to give you side effects because you don't need it. So that's good
Right.
news.
Right.
Okay. And you're going to retain less water because when you eat sugars and carbs, basically that's what they need to get into the cells. So this is going to reduce any puffiness in the face, the neck, and other parts of the body. So that's a good thing. I mean, holy mackerel, who wouldn't want that? I mean, feeling puffy and looking around in a picture, you may not be happy with that. So that's when they can help fix that pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one, you're going to lose some body fat. I mean, again, who doesn't want to lose some body fat because you have insulin down, so you're just burning fat. It's really obvious. And Vince knew this stuff. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
anyway. So then, uh, you know, this is the last step is going to be you're less likely to become insulin resistant, and insulin resistant is a huge problem in this country. And until people wake up and start focusing on that, they're going to have all kinds of problems. And
Mm-hmm.
again, like I mentioned, being when you come in some resistant, again, you're gonna you're gonna cause problems with how you absorb your food, how you absorb your vitamins, your minerals, and other things that are important for you to function at a high level. I mean, and not sure I could go on, but that's some of the quickies that I think people should be aware of.
Well, I'll tell you what, it is a very horrific disease, diabetes. Armin,
Uh,
you and I have talked about this countless times in regards to our fathers.
yeah,
Each of them have had it, and
yeah,
you know, their quality of life went south pretty quickly. I mean, gosh, my dad was a rugged, strong guy,
mm,
and it ultimately, ended up killing him because it just totally sapped him of his strength, his ability to do
oh
the
yeah,
things that he used to do. And, nobody wants to get to that point. And, if you think it won't happen to you, man, I don't want to take that chance. You got to be really careful with this stuff. And I know we're getting kind of low on time here, but do you have any final thoughts here as we wrap this up?
Okay, so if you track your sugar and carb intake each day, I think you're going to be pretty surprised how much you're actually taking in because it adds up
Mm-hmm.
pretty quick. So that's really a key takeaway. Do that and see what you're coming up with, and I think you're going to be kind of shocked. And
Right.
then reevaluate and see where you can cut that back. I mean, Vince never in any of his nutrition programs advocated being taking sugar related stuff. Okay, he just didn't. I mean, now he was okay with some fresh fruit and some lactose, which is a sugar from milk. He was okay with that, but that was
Mm-hmm.
it. It wasn't like there was nothing else because he wasn't a
Right.
big fan of having a lot of carbs either. So if you have health problems, you should definitely do this today, start tracking everything and see what you can do to make life better. Because it's not easy when to correct these processes because they're part of your daily habits and they're part of your
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle. So to make those changes, that may not be easy for you. So you have to do it because there's some addictive behaviors that may be involved with that. But you got to look at the bigger picture if you care and you want a better quality of life.
Armin, I agree with you. I mean, just for the things I've learned from you, I've changed several things. Every morning I used to have cream and sugar in the coffee. Now it's heavy cream and allulose. I
Yeah,
have gotten past it. And there are things that you can get past. It's just like anything else. If you really want it, you'll do it. And these are things that, if you'll take care of your car and have it serviced, well, it's the same thing with your body. You got to take care
yeah.
of yourself and service your body. So
Well,
anyway,
on that note, if you put sugar in the gas tank, we know what happens with that. It's just going to seize up, and there's
absolutely.
nothing there. So just as a comparison. But yeah, your thing on allulose is good. So if you're somebody that needs a certain amount of sweetener, then you should look at allulose because it doesn't bring up your insulin.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying go overboard on allulose, but use it to
Right.
kind of help you with that transition. But that way you're not suffering, so to speak, or struggling to make that changeover.
Hmm.
Anyway, so
Yeah, and it can be used even in baking or anything
oh
like
yeah,
that.
yep,
So it can really help you in a lot of ways fight the sugar battle.
yep.
Because I steer away from everything now. If I am going to use a sweetener per se, it will
Yeah,
be allulose or I don't use anything. So that's
yeah.
what I do. But anyway,
That's a good one. All right.
all right. I hope you guys enjoyed that segment. Armin and I, we've got to take a quick break, and you'll hear a quick word from NSP Nutrition. Armin and I will be right back.
Hey, and welcome back to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Armin Eckelbarger.
I'm Frank Mills. Thank you again for joining us. Hey, before we get started on your fan questions, check out nspnutrition.com. I'm looking on here today, 10% off your entire order and a free hoodie. What the heck
Yep.
is going on? That's a great deal. Um, Me in Florida, I use a hoodie occasionally. It's hot down here. But
Yeah.
if you're located where you get some colder weather or you wear a hoodie
Uh,
quite often, hey, what do you want for a free one? I do have one. They're very thick and nice, though. I like my
yeah.
hoodies. So check out NSP
Cool.
Nutrition and get yourself a hoodie today. So anyway, Armin, fan questions.
All right.
We've covered all the YouTube content. We get in new content all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I go through this stuff and, we get some really good questions. And I've got another one. It seems like a lot of people are asking more and more about energy drinks. And I know we've
Oh,
answered this
yeah.
question a couple times, but we've got a guy who's been watching the show. His name is Mike. Mike
Mm-hmm.
is in Savannah, Georgia. Thanks
Okay.
for watching, Mike.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
There are several types of energy drinks that are out there right now
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
that that actually process all different kinds of bad things for your system, right? I mean, that's just how it is. And we got a lot of brand names that we see that are being sponsored everywhere, from Monster Energy to Celsius. We've got so many different brands, right?
Yeah.
And he said it's so hard to navigate because if you just go in the grocery aisle now and look at the energy
Mm,
drink section,
yeah.
you're talking at least a 4 to 8 foot section of all these energy drinks, of all these different types, different
Yeah.
sizes, right? They all say different things, anything to get you to buy them.
Right.
Mike's like, Armin, how do you navigate? Because, and it seems like we've gotten this question over and over through maybe different things, but what's the best way, Armin, that you navigate finding the right energy drink? He heard us talking about Celsius. He
Yeah.
got some
Okay.
and does like it, but are there other brands besides Celsius? And if not, as new brands come out, how do you navigate the energy drink market?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. So what I look for is the ingredients, and that's what's important. So the typical energy drink is going to have a certain amount of caffeine. So you look and see what the caffeine total is. Then I look for if it has B vitamins because those are good for you and they absorb with it. They help with cognition and things like that. Because energy drinks also to kind of keep you alert along with the caffeine. And then I just looked at what kind of sugar sugar replacement that they're using or a sweetener.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't do any energy drinks that have sugar in them. That's already if it has a sugar if it has calories and sugar in it, that's typically off the table. So what I look for is okay, how many calories is in the energy drink? So if it's 4 to 6 calories or no more than 10 calories, probably going to be a good fit. Okay, and then total caffeine, the ingredients, and then the sweeteners that I like that you can't find hardly is typically a sweetener I like is sucralose because that's the only one I can really find. Most of them have aspartame, and there's a lot of debate back and forth about is aspartame
Right.
good, is aspartame bad. So what I decided, okay, let's look up aspartame. So what people don't understand about aspartame is it's basically two amino acids that are glued together by wood alcohol. All right, now it's a very minute amount. Okay, so the decision you got to make is do you want to put that in your body, even though it's a very minute amount? Because
Right.
the food company's like, oh, it's not going to hurt you. Well, this is not going to do it. But the other issue is how many of these things people drink.
Right.
So
Right.
I only do if I'm going to do one, it's only one for the whole entire day. I seen people drink 3 and 4 of these things, with the sugar, with the caffeine, and no wonder they're going to have some problems. I mean, you're kind of jacked with your energy level, and
Right.
it's not good. So that's another thing. Just keep it to one a day, and typically the only time I do is on a training day. So there you go. Now I do have energy drink if I have some alcohol and I have energy if I have some energy drink when I'm having and I don't have them mixed together, but if
Right.
you have if it has aspartame in it with alcohol and you're drinking alcohol, well, that neutralizes it. So, for somebody that's dealing with something like that they want to be aware of, that's another thing to kind of keep in mind, but that's kind of minor, but it
Mm-hmm.
will be neutralized. So you want to check the sweetener. It's either the ideal one's going to be stevia or it's going to be sucralose is your safer sweeteners, in my opinion. Again, this is
Mm-hmm.
just me talking. You have
Mm-hmm.
other arguments for it, and then check your overall B vitamins and what's in it. And so now some of these energy drinks have other things in them, guarana and other things that convert to caffeine as well, and
Mm-hmm.
will increase your energy. So you want to understand those. So look them up. I don't have enough
Right.
time to go over each one of these things separately, but you'd be amazed when you start reading the ingredients. Wow, there's a lot of stuff in this. So get an
Mm-hmm.
understanding of it. And another thing you can have that can affect your teeth depending on how much acids, the citric
Mm-hmm.
acid they're putting in. Some of them have it, some of them don't. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
The other thing too is it is very popular now. When you go out to have a good time, a lot of drinks are made with energy drinks. It's not
yeah,
just soda anymore, right? I
yeah.
mean, so I mean, I personally think you got to be really, really careful on what you put in your body, period.
I agree.
But, to have more than one energy drink a day to your system,
Yeah,
I just don't understand. I actually watched a friend of mine work with another guy
yep.
out in his yard, and he had 4 or 5 in a day
Yeah, that's just
because,
asking for it.
I'm tired. I want to keep my energy up. Well, ev- eventually something's going to give out, right? I mean, you can't just keep pouring that into your system thinking your body's going to be okay.
It's a
So
fact. That's an
yeah.
absolute fact. So I mean, something, yeah, and most of them are pretty young because they can kind of deal with the stress to their body of it. But I can tell you this, there's like C4, which is a pre-workout drink. I've seen that. I've had like 4 or 5 clients that took
Hmm.
that, and their cardiologist told them to get off of it because it was giving them heart issues.
Okay.
Now, C4 can say what they want, but this is my experience. So it is what it
Hmm.
is, whether people like it
Hmm.
or not. So I'm not touching C4 with a 50-foot pole. So that's where I stand on that particular
Hmm.
product.
Hmm.
So because
Well,
it's just not good.
on the show that we did on Frank Mills Reality Fitness, we went through quite a few energy drinks, and I think the only
Oh yeah,
two at that time was Celsius, and then I told you about the Rowdy Energy, right? And you checked that one
yeah,
out, and that one
yeah.
was pretty good too.
Actually, that one looked good. Yeah, I forgot
Yeah,
about that
yeah,
one. Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. That'll be a comparable. I don't know how it tastes or anything, but that would be a
Hmm.
comparable drink to consider if you feel like you need to have that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, hopefully that answers your question. We appreciate it very much. Next question, Armin, is from Stephanie. She
Hmm.
lives in Maine, and
Okay.
she says, I've read a lot of articles and seen a lot of things about mercury in seafood. Now, I
Yeah.
intake a lot of seafood. I like protein, but I like to eat fish and shrimp and scallops and all that good stuff.
Mm.
Am I going the wrong direction? Am I going to have an issue with mercury eating seafood? That's our question.
She can, yeah. Actually, Tony Robbins had a similar problem. So, what you want to do if you do eat a lot of seafood is you want to get a heavy metals test done. Because he was eating so much seafood that his body was toxic with different heavy metals from it. Because you
Mm-hmm.
have other metals involved, you got cadmium, you got mercury, even zinc's a factor because you get that from oysters and things like that. So,
Right.
and I had a heavy metals test done, and my I had elevated cadmium levels. So you've got to
Hmm.
take I'm trying to think what I had taken a supplement to offset that, but and I'll give that out in a second. But having a heavy metals test done would be what she needs to do if she's eating a lot of seafood, because
Right. Right.
if it gets toxic in the system, that's a problem. So one other thing that people may not realize is when you have tuna, okay, there's a lot of mercury in tuna. So an offset to that, though, is typically there's a lot of selenium in tuna. Now, selenium helps with testosterone production, things like that. So there's a good chance that the selenium will offset that particular heavy metal
Mm-hmm.
because the selenium binds with the mercury, I guess, and it somehow gets through the system. The problem with the heavy metals is if with the fats, it can get absorbed into the fats, and that's where it starts to store, and that's when it can start causing the problems. So yeah, the first thing, if I were her, if she's been doing it for 3 or 4 years or whatever, I would get a heavy metals test done. That
Mm-hmm.
she can get that through. She can get it through life extension, or she can get checked with her doctor. Because it's the life extension heavy metals test done, which I had, was just a saliva test, and you mail it in, they send you back your results,
Hmm.
and it was pretty impressive how it works. It's not, it's like $100 and some, but
Mm-hmm.
that would be or maybe it was $200. Can't remember, but that would be something to that I would do if she's concerned about it. Because once you know, then you got to do a detox and a cleansing to get the metals out of your system.
Mm-hmm. So it's just like anything else. Moderation is the key. We're not saying don't have seafood. It's just I don't think it would be good for anything to eat the same thing every single day, morning, noon, and night. I mean, you want to mix it up. And with seafood, I probably have it maybe once, maybe twice, like in a week if I have
Mm.
it. I don't have it more than once a week. I'm just, I like variety. So I have a hard time eating anything, the same thing every single day, except eggs. Eggs, they
Yeah.
get a free pass. So anyway.
Well, one other thing about the seafood though is that typically the heavy metals are more in the bigger fish. So swordfish,
Ah, okay.
big flounder can have some, not as much, but you got tuna, uh, and the bigger fish is what you want to be aware of if you're eating a lot of those regarding heavy metals. But
Okay.
just getting a test done, because there is a lot of heavy metals in our system, in our
Hmm.
water system and stuff too. So it's not all about just fish. I mean, the thing you want to eat with fish is you want that omega-3. I get that, but you also got to make sure you're not getting any toxicity from it.
Right.
So keep that in mind.
All right, Stephanie, thanks for the question. Appreciate it. Hopefully that helps. And thank you all for joining us for
Uh,
another show. We need your content for the Q&A session here at the end, your fan questions, your feedbacks. If you have any topics or anything that you'd like us to cover, please contact us by either scanning the QR codes above our heads,
mhm.
or you can comment on YouTube or email us at support@nspnutrition.com. Armin, another great show. Thanks so much.
No problem. It's always a pleasure, and hopefully people got some takeaways. And we really appreciate the questions, because other people are going to probably have the same question, and it gives them some help. And feel
Oh,
free to share this show with
yeah,
as many people that you care about, especially if you feel like there's value that's provided to you. Let other people know, because we can help that many more people. That's a good thing.
I
It's free.
agree. I
It's free.
agree. That's what it's all about. That's why we're doing the show. So we
Yeah.
appreciate you joining us, and join Armin and I next week for a brand new episode of the NSP Nutrition Show.
Hey, thanks for checking out the NSP show. Go to nspnutrition.com, where you can find a whole heap of resources to help you achieve stunning definition and eye-popping levels of muscularity. Don't forget, you can save 10% on your first order by using the code NSP show at the checkout. Catch you next time.